Hi, how are you doing today? Welcome to another video. This is Mr. Chow from EnglishTuition.org. Now in today's video, we're going to learn how to write a great composition. This particular video is for the primary level. Okay, in order to write a great composition, first of all, we have to learn what are some common mistakes to avoid. So let's get started. The very first mistake that you want to avoid is avoid getting carried away and writing out of point. Now, from my experience, this is a very common mistake because students, when they start writing, they get so engrossed in writing about the story that they get carried away, right? And then they forgot about the main topic, or they forgot about the pictures that were given to them in the first place. Do remember that for the PSLE examination, students need to refer to at least one of the pictures, right, in order to write their composition. So always try to go back to the topic or refer back to the pictures to avoid getting carried away and then in the end writing a composition that is out of topic, and the end result for that is a possible failure, right? So this is a very serious mistake, so do look out for it. Now, the second mistake that students tend to commit is that some students like to write the same stories every single time. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing the same stories every single time, but the problem is there's no real improvement to the students' thought processes. So if you find yourself running out of ideas, do read a bit more, right, and try to get some inspiration from others. And then you can try to combine some of the ideas here and there, and very soon you will be developing your own original story ideas. These are the compositions that tend to be better than average, and you have a higher chance of scoring higher marks. And the third mistake that students tend to make is that sometimes they like to over-exaggerate, right? So instead of having the appropriate emotion for any given situation, right, they over-exaggerated the reaction, right? So if you have just get bitten by a tiny little mouse, you do not use words like grieving, right? So that is an example of over-exaggeration. Or they can do the opposite, right? Sometimes instead of having just a little bit of exaggeration to play up that drama, right, their story is in fact too flat, right? There's no reaction at all. So that means that the stories can be a little bit boring and it's not as interesting as we would like. And mistake number 4 is a big one, right? Many students, even some of the better students that I have taught, and they were getting like AL3, AL2 and above, when they start writing compositions, besides getting carried away, sometimes the story is illogical. So this has something to do with their level of reasoning, right, their level of experience when it comes to writing. Okay, and then we find that the stories can be full of plot holes, right? For example, students have the tendency to not know how to respond appropriately, right, for a given situation. So if you're writing about a crime, for example, or if they're faced with a fire, for example, right, so some of the responses that they give are actually quite cute, right, but they tend to be a tad illogical or unreasonable, right? That's what we call a plot hole. So we want to avoid that. In actual fact, I spent a lot of time for some of my longer standing students to go through different types of settings, right, to make sure that we uncover all these unreasonable actions or responses in their head, right, so that we can validate and discuss these actions in order to prevent them from writing this sort of responses in their compositions, right? So we want their compositions to have a lot of logical ideas, logical steps, reasonable behavior within the story itself, right? That's how we can ensure that they write good compositions. And mistake number 5 is similar to the mistake that we mentioned before. Your story has no rising action, no falling action, and no climax at all, right? So I know a lot of students, when They write, and then they hit the climax, which is somewhere in the middle of the story, and then immediately they end the composition, right? So in short, the composition doesn't have any action, right? So it makes the story very boring to read. And the next mistake number 6, story tends to be filled with repetitive content with no real substance. There are many reasons for this, right? Because some students struggle to come up with ideas, and they're just concerned with the minimum word count, right? So the first question that they always ask is, what's the minimum word count? What's the minimum word count, right? And for these students, my advice to you is that you actually don't have to worry so much about the minimum word count. Do just focus on planning your story, developing the ideas, and the word count will follow. You'll be surprised that for a PSLE composition, that it's very easy to fill a composition with 250 to 300 words. In fact, the shorter you write, the more difficult it is for you to develop the story, right? So you want to make your life easier by giving yourself a bit more space, right? Get your composition up to like 250, 300 words even, right? And then that's the right or the adequate amount of space that you give yourself in order to properly develop a composition. And mistake number 7, sometimes the story is not resolved in a satisfactory manner, right? And it is incomplete for some reason, okay, whatever the reason is. Oops, let's go back. So the student may be running out of time, and this is one of the main reasons why they did not resolve the story. So if time management is an issue, please practice more and make sure that you stay within the time limit. And when you are about at least 10 to 15 minutes before the end of the examination, make sure that you write a proper concluding paragraph for your composition, and then leave the remaining 5 to 10 minutes to check through the entire story, so that you can look through your grammar, spelling, etc., and catch all the grammatical errors, right? So don't leave your story hanging. Give it a proper conclusion. And mistake number 8, the composition does not demonstrate a student's true potential, right? For example, they use words or sentence structures that are too simplistic, right? Remember, when students sit for the exams, there's nobody sitting by their side, right? Mr. Chow will not be there to remind the students that these are the words that you should use. These are the sentence structures that you can try using to demonstrate that you have a good command of these sentence structures. So students who do not use better words or who do not vary their sentence structures, typically they have low self-confidence when it comes to using language, right? So if you cannot demonstrate your confidence within the paper itself, right, then it is very hard to score a good grade for your composition. So make sure that during your practice, you try to use more words, more challenging words, more difficult words. Challenge yourself with a variety of sentence structures so that when you go for the exam, you can go in there with full confidence and write with a variety of sentence structures so as to get higher marks for yourself. And with that, we have come to the end of the video. If you've enjoyed this video, do remember to leave a like and a subscribe. And if you're serious about improving your English composition, please do consider signing up for proper English lessons. You can find more details at englishttuition.org. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.